This was a recall by Democrats of a failed experiment in, you're exactly right, Smug, non-law enforcement. The guy, he worked as a translator for Hugo Chavez. His parents were domestic terrorists who spent their lives in prison. Then he got raised by other domestic terrorists known as Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dorn, who were the heads of the Weather Underground, a group that bombed United States facilities like the Capitol building for several years, and people died as a result of their activity. So you do have to ask, what were the San Franciscan people thinking putting him in? But a lot of people say they didn't quite realize, they didn't quite do their homework. It was like, oh, okay, I'll just go with him. Then people started dying. And the most recent case that got a lot of attention, 2 women died. They were killed in a DWI accident by a convicted felon who Chesa Boudin let walk with a slap on the wrist for a bunch of other felonies that he had committed. And Chesa looked back and said, you can always sort of use the 2020 hindsight to say, I wish I'd made a different decision. No, he didn't promise any changes. He loved letting the criminals out and not punishing them. And of course, the results of that were always and remain predictable.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been a long slide for San Francisco towards embracing this kind of thing. And you've seen nationally, right, with the defund the police and everything else, how George Soros has funded this network of prosecutors that basically don't enforce the law in localities across the country. We saw that terrible tragedy in Wisconsin where the guy with the parade was somebody who was convicted or at least charged and then released by a prosecutor that was similarly minded to Chesa Boudin. I mean, look, there's a huge case of buyer's regret happening across this country right now with many, many places. But it's so stark in San Francisco because, what was it? 6 months ago, we had that school board recall where there's a whole bunch of people that prioritize renaming your schools over actually teaching your kids. And that was kind of an eye opener. I would have thought Chesa Boudin would have maybe taken a clue from that. But no, I mean, he continues on his way of not enforcing the law. And here he is recalled.
Well, here's what he has to say about it in his speech last night when it was obvious he was gone down.
We have 2 cities. We have 2 systems of justice. Yes. Right? We have one for the wealthy and the well-connected and a different one for everybody else. And that's exactly what we are fighting to change. People are angry. They're frustrated. And I want to be very clear about what happened tonight. The right-wing billionaires outspent us 3-1. They exploited an environment in which people are appropriately upset. Voters were not asked to choose between criminal justice reform and something else. They were given an opportunity to voice their frustration and their outrage, and they took that opportunity. Now look, we know over the next couple days, the vote count's going to narrow. And we know that people were writing the obituary of this election before our campaign even started. But we are just getting started.
Oh, Chesa. It's over.
I mean, the thing is that
sweetheart.
He makes a good point. I have to agree with what he said. There are 2 systems of justice in San Francisco. There's wealthy Democrats like Nancy Pelosi and her husband. Right? And then there's the rest of people who have to live with the consequences of these liberals and progressives where, this guy can get a DUI. We haven't seen a mugshot. Imagine if
talking about Polly P here.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi's husband. Tell the audience what happened.
So he gets a DUI. And what's really interesting is you had some journalists look into it. So there was something like a 4-hour gap between when he gets arrested and when he gets booked, and they take his blood test to determine his levels. In that 4 hours, I mean, those numbers can change. The information still hasn't been released with his mugshot, which every other person's is released, especially if they're somehow connected to politics.
Are you saying they were driving him around town, maybe to Taco Bell for 4th meal?
Yeah.
See if we could work down that blood alcohol level?
Yeah.
Get some bread in him.
Pelosi, let's see how we can get you out of here.
Get him a cup of coffee.
And then there's the system of justice that other people in San Francisco have had to live under, where you go into a drugstore and you're watching it getting ransacked before your very eyes. Yep. And you walk down the street. You can't take your kids on the subway anymore because it's basically become a den for people to shoot heroin.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I really liked about what he said there, what Chesa said, is he fails to understand the basic mechanics of an election. And that is when you are the incumbent, very often it's a referendum on what you did in office. And he says there, oh, well, people didn't get to choose between criminal justice reform and something else. They were angry and they voted. Yeah, that's called a referendum on you.
Yeah.
On you.
That's the way it works.
You're responsible. You know,
it's
you've
done a really
this
bad
is a recall.
It's a recall,
right? It's literally a recall.
They can't even wait to get rid of you.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, we're so mad you have to be fired right now. You know, people are dying, and he takes no responsibility. And I love the Republican billionaires. Okay. Yeah. That's what did it. Who got this started? Who did the signatures come from? And by the way, you couldn't vote in this election unless you were a San Francisco resident. As I pointed out, San Francisco is only 6.7% Republican. So that's a lie. And, you know, the Democrats proceed with this lie at their own risk, you guys. I mean, you tell me, because I listen every morning. As you know, I try to listen to my left wing and I try to listen to my right wing podcasts and consume news, print news as well from both sides. And NPR, their take was, okay, well, he lost, but it's a runoff in the LA mayoral race. You know, she's still in it, Karen Bass, the Democrat. And, you know, in California at large, like, it's still the Democrats' game. And this doesn't really tell us anything about national politics.
Well, I think it tells us a lot about national politics and the way that the wind is blowing here, clearly away from progressive base politics, which get played all the way from the local level in San Francisco and LA to the White House, right? I mean, there is only one brand of Democratic politics right now, and it is off the left-hand side of the map.
And it starts in California.
Starts in California.
And that's what the listeners, the minions in California will always tell us is like, what's happening in California will be happening to the rest of America in 18 months.
Are you tired of feeling like someone's always watching you on the internet? Maybe advertisers know a bit too much about you, or you're just concerned about the privacy of your identity. Using incognito mode will not solve the problem either. IPVanish VPN is here to protect your right to privacy and to help you stay anonymous online. IPVanish helps you safely browse the internet without exposing your private details to third parties. You can use IPVanish on your computer, your tablet, your phone, even devices like your Fire Stick when you're streaming media. When you use IPVanish, all of your data is encrypted. IPVanish makes you virtually invisible online. It's that simple. IPVanish is offering an incredible 70% off their yearly plan for our listeners right now with a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's like getting almost a year, like 9 months for free. IPVanish is super easy to use. All you have to do is tap one button and you are instantly protected. Take your privacy back today with a brand rated 4.6 out of 5 on Trustpilot. Go to ipvanish.com/Megyn and use that promo code MEGYN to claim your 70% savings. That's ipvanish.com/Megyn. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.